Welcome back. This is Tim Harris, and I have a very special guest for this week's World's Greatest Agent Interview Series, Mr. Chris Heller. Now, the reason you need to be paying a very close attention to what Chris has to say is because he has come from the real estate industry in many meaningful ways. An amazing individual agent. He ran an amazing team, still does. He was the CEO of Keller Williams, CEO of OJO Labs, and a whole bunch of other things. So when you're listening to Chris, I want you to remember the different facets of his background and the advice that he's passing along. And Chris and I have been friends for decades. Julie and I and Chris have been friends for decades. So don't be surprised if the conversation is a little bit more casual than maybe you're used to. So Chris, welcome to today's podcast.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So we met originally when we were both coaches for MFO. So how crazy is that?
Yeah, long time ago.
And you were one of the original coaches there too, weren't you? Like one of the original three?
Yeah, there was actually five of us when he was expanding. The first time he needed to hire more coaches, or that he hired agent coaches, I was one of the 5 agents that he hired. So that was that was a long time ago. That was it was in the 90s.
Chris, you coach full time, and Julie and I used to have full schedules where we coach 60 to 70 agents per week. I don't know if you ever were that, if you took on that many. Yeah, we were crazy.
No,
but
nor did I have the patience for that.
Well, that was our buds training, right? That's what Julie and I saw it as. But have you ever experienced anything that required that level of prolonged, intense work before or since coaching agents?
No, it was a different, all I had done before that was, sold lots of houses as an agent. My team, as I sold more homes, I needed more people. There was no concept of a team back then or building a team. It was just you hired more people to help you do more. But coaching agents became, it was a whole nother level, right? It's not only of my mindset and my preparation, but then also working to help someone achieve their goals. And what I found more times than not, I was more committed to them succeeding than they were, and then that just became for me a source of frustration. So my coaching career was not that long-lived.
Well, it is fascinating what you just said. It's motivation, right? And Julie and I were just doing our podcast prior to this. And one of the questions on Fridays, we do questions from listeners. And one of the questions was from somebody who was frustrated because they've been listening to us on the podcast for years, and they know they need to pick up the phone because they know all the passive lead generation sources don't work as well and the rest of it, but they just couldn't get themselves to, pick up the phone. I'm going to make this into a question for you because it wasn't easy to answer. And, they were looking for some sort of inspirational, all of a sudden we are going to just give them some few words. It's going to change their life. And there is no such thing. So when you are facing down that with a lot of your coaching clients and people in general, how do you help them move past that?
My mentor used to always ask this question is, what's your option? And what do you want? Like if as agents or anyone, if we aren't clear on what we want and why it's important and what we're willing to do to get it, then doing the things that you need to do, especially in the things you don't like to do or don't want to do, or on the days you don't like to do it or don't want to do it, becomes really hard. So if there's a big enough reason or something that's important enough, they'll cause you to do things that you don't want to do or cause you to be uncomfortable and be okay with being uncomfortable, you'll do it. Otherwise, in the absence of that, there's just too many forces that'll hold you in place. So, I would try to just get people to figure out what it was. And that actually was really hard for a lot of people, right? To really, maybe I was lucky, maybe I was really clear and have been since very, very early in my life what I wanted and what was important. And so for me, that I have to spend any time or energy trying to figure that out. But I think a lot of people do.
That's true. And most people won't they won't do what they don't want to do, and they don't want to do it at the highest level until the option of not doing it is worse than what their perception is of doing the actual work. Right. Yeah. And so unfortunately, that's the truth. People have to hit rock bottom, and it isn't required. I shouldn't say have to, but they choose to hit rock bottom before they actually finally do what they know they're supposed to do in the first place. In a market like this, with all the changes that are happening in the industry, there are a lot of people that are going through that emotional quagmire. A lot of people that are tuning into us for the first time, and I'm sure asking you for advice, who, they didn't realize really what a skills-based market would be like. Well, let me go back. So you said never had an issue with doing the real work of real estate, and you are a prolific over the phone prospector. I mean, that was where you sowed your oats, basically.
Yep.
So can you take yourself back, or maybe if you can't personally, because it was a while ago, when you have somebody that's working for you, Julie and I've coached some of the people on your team, Aaron for one, and some others. What did you do to get them to actually do the real work of real estate? So like if someone was facing that, because that's the crust of really what holds most people back. What would you say to them? Or would you just get a big stick?
No, like a big stick works sometimes, but often doesn't. The I think there's a couple things. Number one, the right mindset can help you overcome a lot of things. And even as focused and as driven as I was, I still had to use my mind and my mindset to get. There were many days where I'd be on the phone and I'd be having this thought, I don't want to do this. I don't like doing this. Or I want to be doing something else, right? I want to be fishing with my brother. I want to be golfing with my friends, or I want to be at the beach, or so I'd have these thoughts of my wants and don't wants, and I played a little mindset game with myself, and whenever I heard myself think or say want, like I want to do this or I don't want to do that, I would simply say, I don't listen to my wants and don't wants. I just do what there is to do. Because I knew the option is to be ordinary, because the ordinary person would go, I want to do this or I don't want to do that. And then they would not do that, or would go do the thing that they want to do instead of the thing that they were supposed to be doing, or the thing they needed to do to achieve their goals. And the thought of being ordinary or like the masses or anything else was horrifying to me. Like that was a strong motivator. So, I would help others with that, talk about the mindset and share even some of the things to build a strong mindset. That, and trying to find out, all right, well, why are you doing this? Like, why do you get up today? Why do you put on a tie? Why are you in the office? You're here for a reason. You want to accomplish something, whether it's providing for their family or taking care of their parents or buying their dream car, whatever it is, get them really clear on why they're there and what they're trying to do.
So how do you keep somebody motivated once they have financial security and and like, frankly, their financial modalities are completely changed, and now they're not in a position where their fear of losing something, because fear is a great motivator, but once that's removed from their lives and someone's successful, how do they stay motivated after that?
Yeah, for some it's I get asked this now, right? People go, "Oh, you don't have to work, or you don't have to do this," and I don't know. I've convinced myself I do, but maybe I don't. But I like to win, right? So for me, it's winning. Like, put me on a team, show me what hill we got to take, or what wall we have to run through to win, and that's what I like to do. So for others, it might be, tapping into, what do they really like? What gets them excited? What are they passionate about? It might be winning. It might be, competition. It might be, just if they're learning based, giving them an opportunity to constantly grow and improve, and stretching them and almost forcing them to grow and stretch and improve. For others, it's just for some, it's just simple inspiration. Like how can we inspire them? I I don't know if I still believe this or not. I actually don't know. But I used to have the thought, and maybe it's still do, that you can't create motivation. That people have it or they don't. Um, you can inspire, you can um, help them focus on what it is they want, or help them ignite find the passion or ignite the passion. But I truly don't know if you can motivate someone who's not motivated.
Actually, you're helping connect some dots, something Julie and I talk about all the time. It's the whole fallacy of basically following your passion and the money will follow, which is an enormous lie. It's also the destroyer of many people's potentials. So the work, doing what you don't want to do and you don't want to do at the highest level becomes habitual. It just becomes who you are. And to not do it at the end of the day, you feel, murky, yucky. You feel out of sync with who you're supposed to be. I think that's what you're describing. But Chris, when someone asks you why you're still working, when financially you don't need to, what honestly is your first thought when you hear that question? And don't filter your answer, because I think I read your mind when I heard you struggling with that a second ago.
My first thought is I need to. Like I don't feel but it's freedom, right? For me, it's freedom is what I want. And so do I feel that I have complete financial freedom for as long as I plan to live or hope to live, or to be able to take care of any challenges that come up in my family or those type of things. I don't feel that. So that's probably the first like answer. But I think at a maybe deeper level, or the second thought that comes into my mind when someone asks me is I don't feel like I've done my biggest thing or my best thing yet. And I think there's still, yes, I've climbed a lot of mountains and reached a lot of plateaus, but there's more. And I'm not satisfied with, you know, with where I'm at.
Would you ever allow yourself to feel the feeling of climbing the tallest mountain? Would you ever make you ever, do you, based on what you're describing, would you ever allow yourself to have that feeling? Like ever?
It's a great question. Yeah, I actually climbed Mount Kilimanjaro 2 years ago, and
That's the small one, right?
uh,
I'm kidding.
yeah, that's 19,390 feet, but who's counting? Um, the Yeah, I didn't get to the top and like, "Ooh," or like I made it, I did. I was like, okay, now we got to go down. And now, so I don't know. Maybe not. The truth is, maybe not.
How do you feel about that? If the answer's not, so how do you feel about that?
I I don't. I've always viewed and had this philosophy that like there's no finish line, right? There's just the race and there's just the process. So as long as I'm having fun in what I'm doing and I feel good about what I'm doing, then I don't I'm not I'm not in it for the checkered flag. I'm in it for, yes, I said I like to win. I want to win, but winning is not crossing the finish line and then stopping. It's like crossing the finish line and then say, all right, where's the next finish line?
I've noticed about you over the years that you don't like to take public victory laps. You're somebody that likes to share the win, and you don't force yourself to be the center of attention, which is abnormal, especially in the real estate industry. And probably one of the things I really like about you, because I feel the exact same way. I just don't get anything from it. It's almost like it's takes away from me, and I'd much rather, I what are your thoughts when I said that? Are you appreciative of being recognized for that? Because I bet you very few people realize that.
No, it is it it always feels good to be seen, or for someone to understand you. So on a personal level, yeah, that feels good. I had this experience a couple days ago with one of my very good friends, and the CEO of our company. I'm the president, and he's the CEO, and we work very closely together. And he doesn't. It's very hard for him to acknowledge people, as it is for me sometimes, but probably harder for him. And he we're in this conversation, and he finally said, "Hey, look at me." And I sort of looked over at him. He said, "No, look in my eyes." And he wanted to, tell me how he felt about what I was doing and how I was helping him, and the the contribution I was making, all those things. And uh, it was uncomfortable, but at the same time, it always feels good when someone sees you or hears you, and that doesn't happen very often. I mean, I could probably count, you know, on one or two hands the times that that's happened in my life, or the number of people that happens with. and it's okay. I don't seek that, but yes, I acknowledge when it does happen. It it feels good. It feels like, all right, that's this is living. This is what life is.
Most people don't, I think what I've come to realize is most people don't realize that people think that the pursuit should be glory and recognition. And when Julie and I have been asked to speak on a bunch of different stages and within EXP, and I'm always grateful for it. It's always very, all those nice thoughts and appreciation. But I always tell them to interview, put this person on your stage or have this person be your keynote or do this, do the other thing. And I want them to bring up somebody and highlight somebody else that would benefit more from it from a personal perspective. But it is fascinating to me. I've learned that some people perceive that as a quirk, not a feature of a personality. And
Yeah.
so then the whole conversation in my mind goes back to, like, if you had to choose, I'll make this into a question so you and I can stop being philosophical. This is a fun question. If I were to ask the Chris Heller in his 20s, whether he'd rather, because these are all tied together, whether he'd rather be rich or famous in his 20s, which would he choose?
Rich.
Yeah,
I,
and I already know the answer, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So what does being rich mean to you?
um, you hear people talk a lot about the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And I do think there's a distinction. Um, it, I don't, I'm human, so I'm not immune to measuring myself against others, but I quickly catch when I'm doing that and go, that doesn't matter. Like I care far more about, like if someone's making a lot more than me, then for the most part, I'm like, good for them, like good for you. That's awesome. And, does it inspire me or motivate me? Yeah. But it doesn't, I'm not envious or jealous or resentful or those things. So, being rich for me is, again, having the freedom. So I'll share a story with you, a short story. And this is the first time I was conscious of the importance of being able to do what I wanted when I want. And this was a very like a few seconds in time. It was I was a it was either during my senior year or right after my senior year in high school. I had I had some very, very good friends. I didn't have a ton of friends, but I had some groups of friends, and I was with this one group of friends, and we were going to go do something. I don't even remember what it was. Might have been go get something to eat or go do something, go to a movie and two of my friends said, I can't, I don't have any money. And I remember thinking, "Oh, I never want to be able to not do what I want to do because of money." To me, it almost was felt as extreme as like being in jail and not being able to get out. Like you're in prison and you can't get out. That's how it felt to me. And from that realization, from that point on, it was like, okay, I want to be able to do something. If I want to go here, I want to be able to go. If I want to do this, I want to be able to do it. If I want to, pay for that, I want to be able to pay for that. And not being able to is a, a really tough thing for me to deal with or hard feelings to have.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So most people would answer those emotions with wanting less and rationalizing living a compromised life. Have you ever been tempted to basically temper your ambitions with so that basically you maybe didn't have to work as hard?
I've never been tempted to do that. I've had the thought, you know, could I be okay not doing this or not doing that? And
Can you give
the,
us an example, Chris? Can you think if it's not too personal?
yeah, no, it'd be like, would I be okay living a simpler life? Would I be okay, not if I couldn't go do all the things or have all the experiences or anything? And the truth is I could, right? I wouldn't die. I'm not gonna shrivel up and rot away. But uh but I don't know that I could allow myself to do that. I don't know that I could or if I even want to. I one of my favorite quotes is a Helen Keller quote, like life is a great adventure or nothing at all. And that's this is all we have. Like all we have is this adventure that we're in. So might as well give it our all and do everything we can.
It's more stressful and exhausting, not doing what you know you're capable of doing than actually doing it to get the work done. I don't know how to express that other than what I said. It's like
No,
the
I know
yeah,
exactly what you mean.
yeah, what it is though, it's more work, not it's more work to be lazy and complacent ultimately for everybody, because the mental, emotional, weight of carrying that burden around, it burns at your soul. It just does.
Well, and it's also you'll probably remember this, 20 years ago or more. Um, Mike used to say this. He'd say, having no money is stressful. Having lots of money is stressful, right? People with lots of money their problems don't go away. But at least if you have lots of money, you have a means to take care of your problems, or you have more options. So if you're gonna have stress, might as well do it with more than with less.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they're to really be honest with themselves, the thing that they fear, you've heard people say this before, the thing you fear the most is your potential. But where we live now, we've gotten to know some local artists, some very famous local artists, or not local, but one of them in particular is internationally well-known artist, Alec Monopoly. And, I was listening to him say that the thing that stresses him out isn't that he has work to do, he has lots of commissions to do, and he has lots of responsibilities, is that he's going to leave something unpainted that he sees in his mind. And I think that ultimately is what you're expressing. So I appreciate that. All right. So you said something here, which I'd love to drill down on. Rich versus wealthy. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think in so I'll give you my definition. I don't yeah, there may be multiple definitions. I'm sure there are, people have different definitions. For me, rich is I don't know, the thing that comes to mind is sort of like plastic or fake. Like you can have lots of money, but if you don't have good friends, if you aren't a good person, if you don't do the right thing, then I think what makes us wealthy is more of a feeling of that you make a difference, or that you contribute, or that you've impacted someone, and that's far more rewarding than the dollar amount of my net worth. And so there's a component of money and wealthy, certainly by the most people's definition, and even mine, but it's more than money. It's more than a dollar sign.
All right. I was looking up a book. So it's called, this is a great book. Yeah, you'll love this, Chris. I think it's kind of a cheeseball title, but it's great. How to Get Rich. And this was written by a guy named Felix Dennis, who was a British guy, he was a billionaire. He passed away, but it is a fantastic book. It just is so much fun. It's easy to read. It's about this thick, but definitely everyone listening, if you're wanting to answer the wealth versus rich conversation, I'll summarize one of the points he made. He actually said, now remember, this was written a while ago. He said, wealthy is when you have a net worth of basically 30 million or more, and rich is anything before that. But really, Julie and I, when coaching clients, because you'll get, people get overwhelmed with the idea of being rich and all these status things, So rich is simply where your money's working for you and you no longer have to work for your money. So if you're living like where Julie and I are from in Columbus, Ohio, right? If you were making $10,000 a month passively from rental properties and EXP revenue share, or 15 or 20, and you need, say, 8,000 a month to pay your bills, you're rich. Your money's working for you passively. You no longer have to work for your money. So when people get overwhelmed with, I'll never be able to stop selling real estate, or all these stressful things that make it so people feel like they're never going to get off the hamster wheel. If you define it for them, rich is merely where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. And then I ask you, how much money do you have to earn per month? Which, Chris, you know as well as I do, when you ask agents that, they never know. So when they come up with whatever that number is, then you figure out a way for them to make that money passively from things that don't come from a real estate transaction, or one that they're like, it can't come from their team, right? Because that's still an indirect or direct, they have to do it. But if it's going to come from dividend paying stocks, if it's going to come from maybe insurance annuities, if it's going to come from rental properties, obviously, it's going to come from EXP revenue share, and they cover all their personal overhead, that is enough for most people to truly be rich because they never have to work for money again. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that changes everybody's life. As soon as they have that realization, you know, if I earned that, just giving that to somebody as a gift, then the next question is, well, how do I get there? I have a call exactly like that after today, after this interview, where someone who's in our EXP revenue share group, he's struggling financially. It's someone Julie and I, truly care about. And he's finally ready to learn how to build his revenue share group. And he's finally receptive. Why? Because he had to sell his house and he's got 4 little kids because they needed the money and he had a ton of equity in it. And he had been burning the candle at both ends. To what we were talking about earlier, most people wait for the pain of not taking action to be so intense that they have no other options, which is really an option that Warren Buffett, and I'll stop blithering. Warren Buffett said, everyone loves to celebrate the comeback story. He said, I love to celebrate the person that made it and never lost it. That's like you. You've made it and you've consistently built over the years, but there's no victory lap for that. There's no like, well, then I found myself in a gutter,
Yeah. No, I've certainly had setbacks and have started over a couple times, but yeah, I used to tell agents this all the time. I would see agents get into the last quarter of the year and they would start to slow down. They start to coast, right? It was a long year. They worked hard. They're tired. They take their foot off the accelerator, and then they hit the end of the year. Then it's the new year, and they say, okay, I need to get going again. And I used to always say, hey, it's the end of the year isn't a finish line. Those are numbers and dates and months that we made up. Like life keeps going, like life doesn't stop on December 31st and start on January 1st every year. So, the agents that just keep going, when the first of the year starts, they're on in 4th gear, flying. And then the rest of the agents are starting over again in 1st gear and, get going. So it's very similar to what you just shared.
Well, Coach, you just, you know this too, but tell agents not to forget about the end of the year. Your new year begins October 31st, and hit the hard reset then. If you need to take some time off, do it around Halloween, and then just, work forward as fast as you can. But yeah, that's anybody that's in the business, any business for a long period of time knows that that's true. You got to work when other people aren't working. You got to do what other people aren't willing to do. You have to, during this greatest times of change is where the most wealth has always been created in the history of man. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah. This is the time of opportunity.
Wealth now, they're just keeping their heads down. They're doing the work. And that's where 3 or 4 years from now, people are going to go, what the hell did Bob come from? Or in the real estate markets, it's going to be a year from now. They used to be the big, top agent because of all their branding and all the rest of it. And now they're not because someone, insurgent came in and took all their market share. That's what's happening right now. So if you don't mind, can we pivot and talk about teams? Because
Sure.
Julie and I started our real estate team in 1997. And back then, and you know this as well, teams actually, even on the buyer agent side, were quite profitable. You could have buyer agents and you could actually make 50% or 60% off of them, but everything has changed. And one of the really worst parts of the pain that people are going through, a lot of agents, teams in particular are going through right now, is they're starting to doubt themselves because of the fact that they're still trying to make an obsolete business plan work without updating it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I for years and years and years, was able to keep my expenses below 50%, or sometimes they'd hit 50%, 45 to 50%, and which means you could build a really profitable business. And now teams struggle just to be profitable, period. And to your point, things are always changing, always evolving. Technology is forcing change and forcing changes in our behavior and our psyche and our expectations and those of our consumers. So we can't keep operating the same way with the same models and expect that the same results or that things will come back to us. Time doesn't stand still. Things keep moving forward, and we have to keep adapting to keep up or stay ahead of it. And so for teams, it's like, okay, really examining, all right, is what you're doing working? Does it scale? Do the numbers work? Or as a friend of mine says, does the math? And in many cases, it doesn't, which means, okay, then what do you need to change, or how are you going to change it, or what are you going to shift to, so that in this environment, or the environment we're heading into, that what you do will work and will make sense. There's I think for a while people, and maybe this was, I don't know why, so I'm not going to try to figure out why, but for a while people have gotten okay with, hey, I'm just investing in the business, or I'm just putting money back in, or I'm just, no, when you're in a service industry and you're a service business, you have to be profitable, right? This is not, you're not building, you're not making an investment on something that someone's going to come and buy from you, and you're going to make your money on that exit. This is something that you need to be making money on every month and every year.
We pause out there because that's such a good point. And if I summarize you incorrectly, feel free to jump on me. Okay. No one's going to buy your real estate business. It's worth nothing. The profit, your product of your real estate practice is the profit you make from your real estate business. You guys should write that down. The product of your business is happy customers and sold houses and all these other feel good things. But the real true product of your business is profit. And if you're not making the profit, then you're running a non-profit business, which means you're going to be out of business effectively. So it's really important. And Chris, the whole ethos of reinvesting in your business constantly, that comes from the tech sector, because those guys were all venture funded. And when they would, and you know about this, when they get that big investment, the whole deal was they have to continually respend the money so they can get their next round. That has, essentially made its way into the real estate industry. But agents really, truly don't understand when they're listening to somebody giving advice from their TEDx talk. They don't realize that it does not relate to a service business, especially a real estate business. There are no parallels. So if you're not making profit, you're not really running a business.
Yeah. And the whole goal is to make profit to fund either other businesses or investments or your life or all of the above, right? So uh, we we're in a business that provides cash spurts, and the better you get, the bigger the spurts are, and the more of them there are. And so being able to take that cash and then build and create, wealth, or become rich with money that's earning you money is the goal. But yeah, we have to be profitable, and um, growth growth is not the goal. Profitability is the goal.
That's again a really killer point. The pressure that entrepreneurs in general feel to always get bigger is really dumb. Because ultimately, if you can run, how many times, Chris, have you come across teams that are making 3, 4, 5, 6, $10 million a year in commission, but the actual person who's taking all the risk, the leader, is making, maybe if they're lucky, 5 or 6%, probably more like 3 or 4%. They'd be able to make the same amount of actual profit to themselves running a business with themselves and two assistants. And
Yeah.
I'm not preaching one business model over the other, but what they don't realize is the person that's the industry puts so much pressure on agents to build their businesses big. Okay, you did great this year, Chris. Good job. You sold 100 homes. What are you going to do next year? 150, right? Well, to do 150, you're going to have to add 5 staff members. You're going to have to start doing dumb things like buying buyer leads. And, some buyer leads are great. Some buyer leads are dubious. The rest of it. You're going to have to start doing all these things that are going to require you you having a smaller and smaller profit margin, but you sold 50 more houses. Can you help them understand that really that I don't know how to express the insanity of that concept more than I have.
Yeah, I think and part of them, it's because of their structure and because of their economic model, they don't have a choice, right? They have to grow. They have to do it through volume, versus margin. It's because their margins are so small. So, and for some that works, but for most people, if you at every level, like I had to be okay with not having the biggest team. For years, I was the number 2 agent in San Diego, like for over a decade. But the number 1 agent was with my company, and I got to see his numbers. And I know at the end of the year, I was putting more money in my bank account than he was in his. So I didn't care. And like, yeah, you're number 1. Cool. High five, go for it. I was making a lot more money than he was, and netting a lot more money than he was. And that's what I cared about, right? when you take your ego out of it, or if you have no ego about it, I think it's much easier to make, sound decisions, because your ego will cause you to justify things like, well, yeah, but I'm number one and I'll get more name recognition and I'll get more business in the future. And maybe.
Usually,
So
not.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're not.
yeah.
So it's, yeah, I don't know. Here's what we know. If they were running any other business, if they were running a restaurant, if they were running a hair salon, if they were running, you name the business, they wouldn't go month after month with losing money. And if they did, they'd close the business, or the business would be forced to close. In real estate, because we occasionally get these spurts of cash, we think, oh, we'll get there, or we're almost there, or I'll make it, or if I just do this, or just have this many more agents, you gotta have to have a model that makes sense.
Well, it goes back to the question, would you rather be rich or famous? And the agent that you were competing with wanted to be famous. He didn't want to be rich. I don't know where he is age-wise, but I'm guessing he was about the same age as you. And if you were to ask him now, which he'd rather have chosen when he was younger, I guarantee you he would have chosen to be rich. Which actually leads me to a really great question. And this is, the the other dominant personality in my life who does not like to take victory laps, even though he does the yeoman's work, is Glenn Sanford, the founder of EXP. Glenn does not like taking the victory laps, but having gotten to know him over the past 5, almost 6 years, he is so freaking smart and considerate and consistent with his clarity of thinking with regards what's best for the agent. Everyone says we're agent centric and all that type of stuff. I've never seen anybody that's actually truly like that. Matter of fact, I've seen industry leader after industry leader that Julie and I have been aligned with that are the complete opposite. And you and I know some of them, where they'd say one thing on stage, but as soon as they're behind stage, they obviously hated their customers, And I don't, I mean, where I'm going with this is EXP the biggest? Have you seen anything in your career that was this as seismic as EXP Realty has been to the industry? Have you seen anything like it?
Um, so I'm probably one of the few people that could probably say, yeah, I kind of have, because I've been around so long.
I know, I'm
But
challenging you.
yeah, but it's certainly the biggest thing in the last decade, right? It's when I joined Keller Williams in 2004 and left in 2017. So during that stretch, someone could people did say the same thing about that company, right? Because it shook things up, and we, more than doubled in size while I was there. Uh, but in the last decade, no, what Glenn has done and what EXP has done has changed the landscape forever, and paved the way for a lot of other new companies that are coming along, and made it really challenging for some of the incumbents.
It has. And the best thing that I can see is the agents, especially those, for everyone, it makes sense, right? The business model it doesn't matter where you are, new agent, big broker. We're talking to, 2 big brokers right now, one with 2,000 agents, another one with significantly more than that. And when you pen it out, the numbers are just an absolute home run, but it's also true for new agents as well. We can talk on and on about EXP, and as far as it being what Julie and I feel is the biggest thing in real estate. And Julie and I were around when Keller Williams was forming, building their momentum as well. And it's true. But I guess it's also important, since you brought that up, to have folks who don't have as many years in the industry to understand that generally speaking, you'll have a couple brokerage models that are dominant for decades, not just for years. And if you put it in perspective, it's natural for these, businesses to have their peak and their trough over 30, 40 years. And if you think about EXP and where it's on its growth cycle, it's really hard to know for sure, but it feels like it's just getting started, especially because these times have changed.
Yeah, and certainly still in the early stages, even though the company's been around for over a decade. It's um, yeah, there's, you know, it's the good to great, and the those type of stories where you know, the good companies that keep innovating, that keep growing, that that have a winning formula are the ones that can make a long run, and usually do.
Yeah, they do. So what are the other big things aside from EXP that people should be talking about or more aware of that they're not, that's going to affect the industry over the next 3 to 5 years? Like if I, what are the things that really rise to the top of your mind?
You know, it's we grew up in you know, being pounded into us the importance of skills and being able to present your value proposition, be able to persuade someone, you know, in a good way that, you know, what you do is different and why you do is different. Agents are going to be forced to do that now. And so one of the biggest changes is, and I just right before this call, I was listening to a phone call. We introduce tens of thousands of consumers every month to real estate agents, and we do it via live transfer. And that phone call is recorded. And we listen to those recordings, and we give those to the agents so that in the team so they can use those for training and getting better. The vast majority of them are so painfully bad, so, you know, make you cringe when I think about them. And the one I just listened to, the consumer said, "Hey, this is like so unbelievable."
You'll get through it, Chris. Take a breath. You'll get through it.
Yeah. The guy kept saying, "Well, why should I do business with you?" He was sincere. Like he said, "Hey, I was on this site, movoto.com. I'd never heard of it. It connected me to you. Why are you any better than anyone else? Why? I actually know some agents, but I'm open to, you know, working with you, but why?" And she never answered his question. She couldn't answer his question. She kept going on and on, explaining about how she kept referring to him as a lead, and it was horrific. And the simple, this happened to me years ago. I remember the house. I remember the little table we were sitting at. It was a listing. He had interviewed multiple agents. He hired me, and we're filling out the paperwork. He says, "Hey, do you want to know why I chose you?" And I said, "Absolutely. In fact, when I was done filling this out, I was going to ask you that. So thank you for bringing it up." He goes, "I chose you because when I asked the question, what do you do that's different? You had an answer, and you gave me an answer." He said, "Most of the agents I asked that question to didn't have an answer, or it was so jumbled and convoluted, I didn't even really know what they meant." And so in the next 4 or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, agents are going to have to it's not going to be optional, right? That agent that the guy finally said, "You know what, I don't think you're the right agent for me," and he hung up on it. And this was the guy that was going to buy a house. And the that agent that didn't handle that call well is going to wake up tomorrow and still be an agent and bump into someone and help someone buy a home or sell a home, and they'll, you know, just be regardless of their skill level. But with the changes coming in our industry, that won't happen. If you can't demonstrate and effectively communicate your value and why someone should hire you, or how they'll benefit from working with you, you're going to struggle. You're going to more than struggle. You won't make it. So I think that's one of the biggest changes. I think the other changes are, you know, going to be the changes that come about because of technology, right? How we're going to be able to leverage artificial intelligence, how we're going to be able to leverage the technology that will enable us to do things, to do more, to do things more effectively, to do things quicker. Those changes will continue to happen and happen at a, you know, increasing rate. But those are the first two that come to mind.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, people will say, well, haven't skills always been necessary? Well, they have, but in a market where there was so much FOMO, you know, buyers losing the house and sellers losing the ability to, you know, they're winning lottery number of the sale of their house. You know, frankly, consumers weren't that particular. They just weren't that picky. Sellers would list with anybody because they knew the house would sell itself, and buyers would list, you know, work with anybody because they knew you know, essentially the commission was going to be on the other side of the transaction. It's all changed. It's all skills based now. And yeah, I agree with you. It's called, we're calling it, Julie and I are calling it the All Coaches Employment Act. of 2024, because really at the end of the day, that's what it is. But that actually leads me to a lot of fear too for the industry, because a lot of the people that call themselves coaches really don't have any experience. Some of them don't have real estate licenses, and let alone selling, real estate in different markets. So it's, there's a lot of, let me round the bend on today's interview with asking you this question. So you're an agent, you're listening right now, you're wanting to derive three big takeaways, or two or one, whatever you feel inspired to share, about what actions they can be taking moving forward to make it so that their best days in their real estate careers are still ahead of them. What would those three things be?
Right. Number one, we touched on early in the conversation, and that is mindset. Uh, you have to build a strong mindset. You have to build a confident mindset. You have to become resilient. You have to become, um, just strong in your thinking. We can't afford not to be. And there's specific things you can do to do that, and that's a whole nother conversation we can have. So that's one. You're working on your mindset. The second one is uh, skills, what we were just talking about. How do we build our level of effectiveness, right? There's things we can do to become more efficient, better systems, better processes, leveraging technology more, but how do we become more effective? And that's practice. And the good agents have practice. The professionals at any level practice. Real estate agents, they just, as a group, don't. And you have to practice your presentation. You have to practice your scripts. You have to practice your dialogues if you want to be able to deliver them effectively, convincingly, and with the confidence that you need, because practice builds confidence. So mindset, skills, and then the third is aligning yourself, with the right platform or the right set of tools to be able to be as efficient and as effective as possible. Because at the end of the day, we all have a finite period of time, right? We all have the same amount of hours in the day, same amount of days in a week, same amount of weeks in a month, and so on. The difference is how effective and how efficient we are with our time and with the amount of time that we have. And so, am I in a environment that is allowing me to be as efficient, as effective as I can possibly be? Am I with the right group or the right tribe or the right association or the right team or whatever it is? But those are the three areas that I would, if you walked away with nothing else, look at those three areas and think through those three areas. Say, okay, what, where do I need to make an impact in my mindset, my skills, and then my environment.
I'm going to give them another book to read that's called Profits Aren't Everything, They're the Only Thing. I don't remember the author's name, but you guys can just Google Profits Aren't Everything, They're the Only Thing. So if you're struggling as a broker, which pretty much all brokers are struggling, or a team, definitely read that book. Then after you have, let's have a conversation. I will say that that's probably, I've never had anyone thank me for suggesting that they read that book in the real estate industry, Chris. But I've sent it to some of my friends who are not in the real estate industry, and they've all thanked me. But every person in the real estate industry hates the book because it gives them the absolute cuts through the BS. So here are the three things I wrote down. Skills obviously matter more than ever. Mindset, and I'm going to go circle back to that. And the last thing I'm going to summarize what you said is basically community, the people you surround yourself with. If they're, looking in the rear view mirror, if they're waiting for the clouds to clear, chances are, you're going to lose days, weeks, decades of your life. So be associating yourself with people that are thinking about what's next. Now, the mindset thing, I do want to talk about this a little bit. I was going to try to end, but so what's more powerful at building your mindset than taking action?
I don't know, we could debate, but that's certainly one of them, right? Um, it's when you're in action, you're regardless of what you're doing, you're moving, and in most cases, hopefully, you're taking action and moving you forward, and that builds momentum, that builds confidence, that builds a strong feeling. When you're not taking action, it almost does the opposite to all those things. It's like, there's uh, I have a good friend. She just always say, you can either be in your head or in action, and you don't want to be in your head. You want to be in action, and I think that's you know action is a powerful thing. It's and I would add to it. I say action, taking action in the activities that will move you forward, and the activities that are aligned with where you're trying to go. Right?
I don't think I don't think we'd have a debate at all, Chris. We're saying the same thing. Because
Yeah.
what happens is when you're in action, your mindset changes. Like if you want to go to the gym and you want to lose, 10 pounds or whatever, what are you gonna do? What most people do: read books, watch videos, listen to gurus on YouTube, start some strange diet, all these other things. And eventually one day they're gonna get the motivation to actually feel like going to the gym. Where the reality of this, if you go to the gym and you're doing the activity after about 15 or 20 minutes, your physiological state changes and you actually want to do the activity. And then if you do it repetitiously over time, it's going to become just a part of your DNA and who you are. That's how you have a strong mindset, in my opinion.
I agree. Mindset is uh, it's creating a strong mindset is like building a lot of habits, like building a lot of muscles, building discipline. I don't believe anyone's born disciplined, right? It's something you develop, and if you can develop in the right areas, and it doesn't have to be a lot of areas, but just the right areas, you can move forward, and you can move forward fast. We're talking about books, and I normally wouldn't do this, but you would call me out if I didn't do this, if I mentioned I was going to, and that is I wrote a book called Dominant Thoughts, which is just on mindset, and I've had tons of brokers and teams buy it for their agents. And in fact, I got a message, and I need to respond to the guy. It's horrible that I haven't. But he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know it's required reading for every agent that joins our team." And it's just about mindset, and that it would, and it's a story, it's a parable, but it just gives you the things you need to do to help build a strong mindset, and that's something that anyone can do.
That's good. Do you, along those lines, reinforcing your strong mindset, how much media do you intake? Do you watch the news, read the newspaper, or do any stuff like that?
No, no, uh, but for a long time, like, probably 30 years, 35 years, I've been very conscious of what I expose myself to and what I don't. I screen out as much negative as possible, and at the same time fill it in. I've always operated, you'll appreciate this, Tim. I've always operated like there's a finite amount of room here. And so, what am I going to fill that space with? And I try to limit the negative and, put in the positive. When I'm in Austin, I walked our office. It's a 2 mile walk, and I'm listening to audiobooks, every day, and I'm listening, and not to murder mysteries. I'm listening I'm listening to good books that help with the mindset. I'm not listening to the news or those things. And people go, well, how do you know what's going on? I know what's going on. I probably know more about what's going on in the world than a lot of people, and I don't watch the news or spend time there. But yeah, the if I use social media, it's very purposeful, or it's just for a short period of time of entertainment. It's I don't get sucked into it or let it impact me, because it's
It's
at one level it's just all noise.
Oh,
So
dude, it's the greatest destroyer of human potential, and it's gotten so bad. It's Julie and I gave ourselves permission 2 weeks ago to start using a word that we've avoided for the longest time because we don't want to be pigeonholed as zealots, but now we don't give a rat's ass. We do think there's a very pervasive evil that's entered into certainly Western culture and certainly in the United States. And you can see it clearly when you look at the media. The media is all designed to sap your potential. It's all designed to make you feel depressed, make you feel scared, and then then you're going to say, well, what the heck am I supposed to do? And then it's going to make you feel no confidence, and to the point where you're going to be willing to be dependent. And that's really what's happening that's what we see happening. It's scary.
it's yeah, it's at an epidemic type level.
I
When I was
agree.
young, I had a paper route, and every day for 3 years, 7 days a week. And I was a little kid, but the headlines, I realized even as a little kid, the headlines were written to grab attention, to get someone to pick it up, to get someone to open it, to read it. And most of the time it was negative stuff. Like the positive stuff was buried, later, in the thing. So yeah, it's it was bad then. It's like off the charts now.
Humans are you have time, by the way? Are you got on time?
I will,
You're starting to dart around.
the, hold on, I will tell you.
Humans
No,
are naturally
I have time. I have another, I'm good.
okay. Humans are naturally designed to seek negative information. It's part of basically it's the part of the survival mechanism. And
It's like when you ask someone, how's it going, or what have you been up to, the first thing they think of are all the bad things, right? Oh, I've been so tired, or I've been sick, or this happened or that happened. And it's not surprising them because they're like the default in the world that we live in is negativity, right? If it's not neutral, it's negative. Like everything you hear, everything that is negative is what sells. That's what gets people to watch the news or read the newspaper or the things they listen to. It's I when I did watch the news years ago, 30-minute newscast, 20 minutes of bad stuff, 5 minutes of sports, a couple minutes of weather, and then they always end on a good feel good story, right? The fireman that
yeah,
saved the cat or whatever. But it's like they don't people want they need that sometimes maybe to make them feel better. I don't know what it is, this kind of psychology we can
Chris, it's physiological. Julie and I've studied this because we wanted to understand it as well. So what happened was as people as humans were, I'll use the word evolving. As humans were evolving, you didn't like if you so you and your family is walking out of this jungle this direction, and Julie and I, our family, are coming this direction. So when our paths cross, we're wanting to exchange information about what the direction we just came from, and I'm wanting to know about the direction you just came from. Because I want to know, I don't care if there's some lovely freaking flowers around the corner. I want to know if there's a saber-toothed tiger over there, and you want to know if there's what I had to deal with coming my path. And so the natural exchange of gossip and bad news is hardwired into our brains because it's a survival mechanism. That's really what it is. But what's happened is because that trigger is already in our brains, the media has learned how to manipulate it to the point now where we're almost completely out of control because we're always hardwired to think the world is all negative. Like you said, that you thought the world feeds off negativity. I don't think if you, and you know this, Chris, because if you remove the negativity and you remove the media from your heart, from your life, from your mind, from your eyes, you don't see negativity everywhere. It doesn't feel like that. Everything feels, I mean, I think, frankly, very optimistic and positive.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I see it with I see it in business, I see it in our business, I see it in other businesses where when you remove that stuff, it's like taking filters, off your vision, and you can actually see things clearly. You can see opportunities, you can see things. But when you're looking through that filter of fear and negativity, you're blinded to opportunities. And all you see are the challenges and and all you deal with are the fears and the concerns and the insecurities and everything else. And that's why in times like this, the people that are able to see through the fog or to see clearly are the ones that go, okay, where's the opportunities?
Yeah,
I
100%.
thought what's not happening. And the date that the NAR settlement was announced, the vast majority of people were just like losing their minds for days, some still. Uh, and the world's ending, fear, anger, just conspiracy theory, like everything. And I saw a few people and a few teams and a few agents and a few business leaders saying, all right, where's the opportunity? What are the actions I can take? What do I need to do? How can I capitalize on this? And the difference was, there are a lot of differences, but one of the differences was the difference between reaction and action. A lot of people were in reaction mode, and a few were taking actions. A few were preparing. A few were, okay, what am I need to do? If the rules changing, what do I need to do to win with the new rules? If the rules changing, what can I do to do even better with the new rules versus all the reaction?
Well, yes, 100%. I know at EXP, we were talking about what we are going to do to basically make the most of this new market. But ultimately, if you don't believe tomorrow is going to be better than today, if you are convinced that, there's a zombie apocalypse that's going to be around the bend and we're all going to be living in just the horribleness that the media wants you to believe is going to actually happen, where's your motivation to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it today? I mean, if you, for example, if there's all of a sudden we discover the world's going to blow up a week from now, I promise you, I'm not going to the gym. No freaking way. I'm going to Krispy Kremes, 100%. You know, I'm having pizza, Krispy Kremes, and wine. I'm not taking a shower either. Sorry, Julie. But I'm just saying. I mean, so if people don't believe their tomorrow is going to be better than today, they're not going to do today what they need to do to make it so that their tomorrow is better than their today. And that's something a lot of people struggle with.
Things are hard, right? Like it's doing what you need to do is hard, right? It is. It's just there's no easy path. It becomes really hard when you're trying to do it through that negative filter or that they're like invisible anchors that you drag around, because those feelings, right? And if you can just cut those anchors, you can just move a lot faster and a lot quicker through things.
You can. And the first thing to do is realize you have the anchors, and the easy button, if there is such a thing for that, is to go media free for a day, a week, a month, and you'll start feeling this bizarre sense of, well, frankly, you'll feel withdrawal at first, then you'll feel a sense of relief, and then nature abhors a vacuum. And so don't allow that vacuum to be filled with more negativity. Look for ways to basically make it so that, you can now elevate yourself to the next level. Look for human helium is what we say. And, that's what, you and I think, bring to each other. And that's what EXP, the environment there in the community, has been for so many people.
I was just going to say, that's why the community is so important, right? Because it's not just the social media or negative news, it's also people, like who you spending your time with. Yeah, are you spending your time with people that are, building you up and that really see who you are and focus on your strengths? Or are you spending time with people that or like, it's the old adage of, how you keep a crab in a bucket, put another crab in, like you're pulling them down as they try to climb out. Who are you spending your time with? What's your environment like? What's your physical environment like? All those things that impact our mindset and our ability to, be able to see the good and see the opportunities versus the doom and gloom and fear.
Yeah, indeed. So Chris, listen, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. I know you're extremely busy.
I
And
appreciate the opportunity. This is yeah, I get interviewed a lot, do a lot of conversations. This one I was looking forward to, and as I thought it would be, it was just a good conversation between two friends. So I appreciate you for that.
yeah, God bless you, man. And next time you are in Puerto Rico, look us up.
You mean the first time I'm in Puerto Rico?
Oh, come on, man. It's
I've never
beautiful
been.
here.
I know it is. I mean, I'm sure it is. I don't know. I haven't been there, but um, anyways, I'll be kind of close in a couple of weeks. I'll be in Miami.
Well, we are thinking about going up to Miami this weekend for the Grand Prix, but we're not. We're going to stay here. But yes, we go up to Miami all the time. Actually, one of our biggest EXP groups is up there. So yeah, C5 with Orlando.
I'll text you the dates and tell you where I'm going to be.
Okay, cool. All right. Hey, thank you for your time today. Listeners, I know you love this interview, but you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, even if you didn't, I loved it. I love spending time with Chris. And so please do continue to listen to the podcast. Thank you for keeping our podcast the number one listened to, downloaded daily podcast for real estate professionals in the United States. We sincerely appreciate you allowing Julie and I to stay on mission with what our highest and truest purpose in this planet is, which is to be of service to all of you. God bless. Have a great day.